We are up to question 66, which is question 66. What is the reason annexed to the fifth commandment? Reynolds.
By the way, may I interject something next week?
Right.
I'll get Elizabeth to get on her phone and listen to the teaching from her house.
Oh, yeah, that's an idea.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Reynolds, what is the reason annexed to the fifth commandment?
The reason annexed to the fifth commandment is a promise of long life and prosperity as far as it shall serve
Serve for God's
glory and our own good to also just keep His commandment.
All right, so we have the fifth commandment, which we said last week is the first commandment of the second table of the law being divided into two tables. And once again, the first table, the relationship of the first table to the second table. Calvin, you remember that? The relationship of the first table to the second table is what? You remember? All day.
The first table law determines our relationship with our fellow men.
Right. The first table determines the second table. Our relationship with God determines our relationship with our neighbor. And then we said the relationship of the second table to the first table. Maureen, you remember that? Was that?
Our relationship to man is a manifestation.
Right.
Of
Manifestation of the first table. So, that is, and then we said also, we turned to Mark 12, which says that the summary of the first table was what? Gil, you remember that? Which question was that? What is the sum of the Ten Commandments? Gil, remember that? The sum of the Ten Commandments is the love.
The Ten Commandments is that the Lord God with our heart, God's soul with our mind, God's strength with our heart, so knows ourselves.
Our soul, our strength, and all our mind, and our neighbor as ourselves. So that's the sum of the Ten Commandments. And we said that the love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength is the sum of the first table, and to love our neighbor as ourselves is a summary of the second table. And then last week we said that Mark 12 says the second table is like unto the first table. But we just pointed out the difference between the first table, the two tables, and that's what, Kenneth? The difference is that
the difference being that the first table deals with our relationship to God, and the second our relationship to man.
all right. But what we have to also keep in mind is what is meant by the second is like unto it, the similarity. Lest we fall back, which we are always want to do, is to fall back into, I was telling Elizabeth the other day, our tendency is to fall back into what? Galatians 5:4. Armin, read that. Galatians 5:4. You are fallen from grace. Now, the Apostle Paul was not saying that you could be a Christian at breakfast and a non-Christian at lunch. You cannot cease to be a Christian. So when he said you are fallen from grace, he cannot possibly mean that you can cease to be a Christian. What he did mean was what? All names.
What the Apostle Paul meant was that the Galatians fell from grace thinking.
And they're thinking.
In terms of
They're
grace.
thinking, they're going back, they're reverting to thinking in terms of works as opposed to thinking in terms of grace. And that always gets us in a heap of trouble. So that is what we mean by the second is like unto it. The danger is to think of the second table, especially the second table. Remember, the rich young ruler came up to Christ and he said, "What must I do to be saved?" Or "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" Yeah. And what did Christ say? Remember? Huh?
Sell all that you have and give to the poor.
But that was the second. The first thing he said, "Thou knowest the law," and then he mentioned the. Well, let's look at the passage. What's that?
There was
I'm looking for exactly what it is. Ruler.
just to research.
Luke 18. Look at Luke 18 for a second. And verse 18. A certain ruler asked him, saying, "Good master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus said unto him, "Why callest thou me good? None is good save one that is God. Thou knowest the commandments." And notice carefully, which table did he start with? He started with the first or the second?
Second.
Yeah. Do not commit adultery. What number is that, guys? 7. Do not kill. 6. Do not steal. 8. Do not bear false witness. 9. Honor thy father and mother. 5. 5, 6, 7, 8. And guess what? He mentioned every one but the 10th. So he was dealing with the second table of the law. And then how did he come out? Oh, he thought he did pretty good, see? So he's manifesting his belief in works religion. Oh yeah, I did all of those things. All these have I kept from my youth up. Well, Christ knew that he hadn't kept those. What are the 3 conditions for a work being acceptable to God, or a work being considered a good work? All I remember that
It must be commanded, it must be done in faith, and it must be done to the glory of God.
Yeah. Must be commanded, it must be done in faith, it must be done with a view to the glory of God. Christ knew he hadn't done that. And so then he dealt with he went to the first table of the law, commanded him to sell all he had and give to the poor. And so we have to keep in mind what is meant by the second is like unto it. And what do we say? Reynolds, you remember? We went to 1 Corinthians 10:31. Reynolds, what is that?
And therefore ye are doing whatsoever ye do all to the glory of God.
Yes. The second table is like unto the first because, in the sense that, Reynolds, you understand what we're talking about? How does that answer the question? How the second table is like the first table. Even though the second table deals with our relationship to our fellow man, what? All that, you got it?
By obeying God's commandments to treat our neighbor as we would ourselves, we're obeying God and thus fulfilling the first table of the law.
Yeah, well, just think about the fact that for the most part, our neighbors around us are not regenerate, and which means they're totally depraved, which means Romans 3 says, there is none that understandeth, there is none that seeketh after God. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. They're worthless in a certain sense. So, I mean, a guy that's worthless, why is it such a bad thing to offend him? And the answer is what? He's created in the image. So we go back to the first table. He's created in the image of God. So the second is like unto it. We keep the second table still with a view to the first table. They can't. The second table cannot be divorced from the first table. That's the problem. See, that's the problem with works religion. Why is it that a person can't remember the? You probably never saw it. You remember the bridge illustration, the gospel bridge? Oh, I've seen them all. You got two cliffs, one over the right side, one over the left. Yeah. You got a
schism.
You have a gorge in the middle, a gap in the middle of the two cliffs, and you say, well, now how can man's over here and God's over here. Now how can man make it over to God? And you say, one guy does a little bit of good works, another guy gets a little bit closer, but nobody can go all the way over. So then you put the cross, which connects both sides.
I think I have heard of that, yeah.
Well, what's the problem with the illustration, Al?
You can't put the cross there.
Yeah. And another problem is that your works don't go forward; they go backwards. They don't contribute to your reconciliation with God in the least.
You don't even have the mindset to put the cross there anyway.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. You don't put the cross
there. Your thinking is totally negative.
Right, and so so works cannot contribute to. That's the problem with justification by works, is that without God in mind, without a view to the glory of God, your works are not going towards God. They're not contributing to your reconciliation to God. So, and we have the first, and we said that the fifth commandment deals with authority, and if we were going to have a utopia on earth, what would we have to do? You'd have to protect the family. So it speaks of the importance of the family. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. And as we look at our society, we see that one of the main problems, if not the main problem, with the breakdown of society today is the breakdown of the family. And so we see the importance of it. So, and we also said that where there is a... Now, is this stated in a positive way or a negative way, Kenneth? The fifth commandment.
Positive.
All right. Honor thy father and thy mother. Which, well, okay. So what would the negative be? All then we said when it's stated in a positive way, there are also prohibitions. Which is say, what does it say here? What is forbidden in the fifth commandment? All thing. Fifth commandment forbidden.
Forbid the neglecting God or doing anything against the honor and duty which belong to everyone in their several places and relations.
Yeah. So notice that it's not only inferiors to superiors. It's also, we have three relationships. You either have a relationship to someone as your superior, or as your inferior, or as your what? Equal. And it covers all three of them. The neglecting of or doing anything against the honor and duty which belongeth to everyone in their several places and relations. So, that's the negative part of it. And then we get today to the reason annexed to the fifth commandment. And what is that? Armin, the reason annexed to the fifth commandment is? Well, that's the first one for today. Did we already go over it?
Yes.
All right. Well, let's do it again. Did you do it the first time?
Right on, see it.
Okay, Armin, your turn. Reason annexed to the fifth commandment is?
The reason annexed to the fifth commandment is a promise of long life and prosperity, as far as it shall serve for God's glory and their own good.
And that's an interesting thing. A promise. Now, where did that come from in the commandment? Look back in Exodus 20. The reason annexed. What does it mean to annex? All names.
To annex, to connect two things together, which had previously been
Add to the end of something. You build something, you say, oh, that's the annex. Right? Somebody built a church building, and they preached the false gospel so well that they had to build an annex. And so...
That's a great illustration.
So, Exodus 20, what verse is the fifth commandment?
12.
Yeah, verse 12. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. And so, we see that God not only... he could have put a period after honor thy father and thy mother, right?
That little word, that.
Right. And so, what do you see as the import of that, Al? God could have just said, honor thy father and thy mother, and it would have been our duty to honor our fathers and our mothers. But he added something to the end of that.
That.
Why do you think that was?
Authority?
Yeah, it certainly contains that, but God is always giving us reasons to, whether the command is important as this one is, and then he gives us just like Deuteronomy 10:13. Look at that. That's one of our verses, right?
Yes,
Calvin, what is that?
to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good.
Which I command thee this day for thy good. And so we have the same thing here, don't we? God knew that we would... who is it that doesn't want to live a long life? Healthy life on the earth. That thy days... Hey, guys. And then guess what's going to happen if you obey this command? That thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. But interestingly enough, when it says, what do we... which question are we on now? 60 what? The reason annexed to the fifth commandment is a promise of long life and prosperity. And he doesn't put a period after that either, do they? Huh? Promise of long life and prosperity as far as it shall serve for God's glory and their own good. Not in an absolute sense. Otherwise, what? If it were in an absolute sense, then what?
Apply to everybody.
Right. The oldest people that have ever lived would have honored their fathers and mothers the most, right? All things being equal. So, it's, the wisdom of these guys that put these questions together, as far as it shall serve for God's glory and their own good, to all such as keep this commandment. So, why is it that honoring of those who are placed in authority above us is related to long life and prosperity? Maureen, what do you think about that?
Well, God is the ultimate authority, and he put them there. So in a sense, you're honoring God because you're acknowledging his authority to put people in charge of you.
All right. Well, we just, his friend Dave lives in Missouri. And what was that little town in Missouri that was recently in the news? Where did we drive to but Ferguson, Missouri?
Oh, wow.
Not
And
only
right next to where the guy was, I found out later, it wasn't next to where the guy was shot, it was next to where, see, the riots took place near the not near where the guy was shot, but near the police station in Ferguson, and that's where we
Another
were.
part of
And
town.
they
my
turned the
friend
cop
lives
car.
right behind. I mean,
They
back to
turned the
back.
cop car over less than 100 yards away from where we were standing and burned it. But anyway, so what was Michael Brown's problem? No concept of authority, right? And so what happened to him? Did he live a long life?
That's the problem.
Last time I checked, he didn't.
That's
Huh?
the problem with all of society that doesn't know Christ
Yeah.
and doesn't understand truth.
Yeah.
And
And so, but you think of back in your, I think back in my elementary school days, and the kids that were the least respectful of the powers, of their teachers, of their principals, and they ended up having terrible lives. And probably for the most part, they died fairly young. But anyway, the principle is the important thing. There's a promise of long life and prosperity as far as it shall serve for God's glory and their own good. But you see, God has set things up in such a way that He derives glory from our obedience to His commandments. And guess what? Isn't it amazing that things go more smoothly when we, like we say, if all else fails, read the directions. No, when we live our lives by the user's manual, right? We used to call a foreign car tool was a hammer, right? That doesn't work too good on your car. But so that's the reason annexed to the fifth commandment. Question 67. What is the sixth commandment? Gil, remember that? Sixth commandment is. Oh, you haven't gotten there. Yeah, they haven't gotten there yet. All right. Reynolds.
Thou shalt not kill.
All right. Thou shalt not kill. Now, we have the fifth commandment stated in the positive with negative prohibitions included. Now, this one is stated in the positive.
Stated
In the negative.
Sir.
Thou shalt not kill. Now, the word for kill in the original means murder. Yeah. And so that has to be explained. Otherwise,
you couldn't eat chicken.
Exactly.
Oh, that's a fact.
Yeah. And that's what the Buddhists they said put in sasan, you can't kill life, and life meaning, and so they tell stories of these pietistic Buddhists. They would be sitting there and the mosquito is biting him and he's just taking it because he won't kill a mosquito. So
They take their rats and they put them in the trailers and they take them out of their crops and they take them to another place and drop them off like the rats don't know their way back.
Right. Maybe they have dumb rats. But
I don't think so.
you don't think so? You think they make their way back?
Yeah,
And then the non-pietistic Buddhists, Chinese, they eat their rats.
There you go. Yeah. One rat says to another, did you take notes of the route we took on the way here? You gotta get back home. But that's a fact, that's what they did. That's mind-boggling. They actually literally in the United States has puts billions of dollars into places like that. Out of your pocket.
Okay, and then question 68 is what is required in the sixth commandment. Calvin.
Sixth commandment requires the lawful
All lawful.
caring,
All lawful endeavor.
all lawful endeavor to their own life and the life of others.
So, now we have the positive injunction. We have the prohibition, thou shalt not kill or thou shalt not murder. And then, what is required, what is prohibited, what is required. And what is required is all lawful endeavors to preserve our own life and the life of the. But before we go to that, let's look at the reason behind the sixth commandment. Why is it that murder is prohibited? And we're not left to our own surmisings, because Genesis 9:6 tells us clearly. Look that up. Al, why don't you read that?
Genesis 9:6.
It's either 6:9 or 9:6. I can never.
Oh, yes, 9:6.
Yeah, 9:6. Read it, Al.
Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God, and there it is.
Made he man. There it is. So it gives us a reason
Can't kill God's image.
why man we are allowed to eat animals, and in fact we're given dominion. Right, in Genesis 1, we're given dominion. The man is given dominion over the animals, plants. But man is not given dominion over other men, which is a big problem with, there's a movement called the Christian Reconstructionist movement. It is also entitled Dominion Theology, which includes dominion over other people. But we're not given dominion over other people. We're given dominion over the creation with the exception of other men.
So can you do a distinction for us in terms of dominion and authority?
Well, they're they're definitely related because,
Right.
But we can at least go this far. We don't have dominion over other people in the same way that we have dominion over the animals, animal life. We're free to kill them and eat them to sustain our own life, but we're not free to kill another person for any reason. And the main thing we're gonna look at is the image of God, the importance of the image of God. Have we dealt with that already? Is that coming up in the future? Oh yeah, we already dealt with that. How does God execute His decrees? That was a question 7. God executes His decrees in the works of creation. And what are the decrees of God? All right, what are the decrees of God? Reynolds, remember that? The decrees of God is eternal.
The decrees of God are His eternal purpose according to the counsel of His will.
Whereby for?
Whereby for His own glory hath foreordained.
And then the next question is, how does God exercise His decrees? God exercises His decrees in the works of creation and executes His decrees. God executes His decrees in the works of creation and providence. Okay, so He has decrees. He's decreed whatsoever comes to pass, and then He goes about to execute that decree. And that's why we're supralapsarians, right? He goes about to execute His God works by, huh? God is a God of order. And so, first of all, He decrees whatsoever comes to pass, and then He executes His decrees in the works of creation. He creates what He's determined shall be. He creates the material, as it were, and then He provides for it. The work of creation is God's making all things of nothing by the word of His power in the space of 6 days, and all very good. And then, how did God create man? Calvin, what is that?
God created man, male, and female after His own image, righteousness,
and knowledge,
holiness, and righteousness, with dominion over His creatures.
Created man, male and female, after His own image, knowledge, righteousness, and holiness, with dominion over the creatures. With dominion over the creatures, but not dominion over other men, because other men are made in the image of God. Of course, that doesn't do away with the fact that well, even in the sixth, we on the fifth commandment, or in the sixth commandment? In the fifth commandment, we have order, superiors, inferiors, or equals, but maybe we can talk about that later on. Let's stay with this idea before I forget it, because I will forget it. The image of God consists in what? 3 things. Kenneth, did you pick up on it? God created man, male and female after his own image, and
Knowledge, holiness,
righteousness
and holiness.
those 3 things. All right, so here's one of the main problems in Reformed churches today. What do they? Not only do they insist on quoting C.S. Lewis, and they will not stop. They will not stop quoting C.S. Lewis.
Nope.
I will guarantee you that.
Sure.
You can talk until you're blue in the face, and they will not stop. And another thing they will not stop doing is they will not stop insisting that. And if you don't think they're insisting on this, try to keep them from, try to stop them from doing it. They will not stop insisting on what? What am I getting at? Do you know? You know what I'm getting at. What?
Hey, you were here last week. I was.
You weren't even here 3 days ago.
In mind, I wasn't in spirit.
That they will not stop insisting that man at the fall retained the image of God. I'm telling you, people.
At least up to some degree.
Right. They will say that he lost it at a certain level.
Yep.
But we're not going to give them that. We insist, we believe the Scripture clearly does, that, and here's proof of it. How much? Okay, so you ask the question. How much of the knowledge of God did fallen man retain? And look at 1 Corinthians 2:14. Says what? First Corinthians 2:14. All name. What is that?
1 Corinthians 2:14, but the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for the foolishness of him. Neither can he know the because they are spiritually discerned.
Now we're speaking of spiritual understanding here. Knowledge, it doesn't mean 2 + 2 = 4. It's talking of spiritual understanding. The natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither what? Can he know them. They're foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them. So how much knowledge did man retain at the fall? 0. How much righteousness? Righteousness meaning what? All day? Remember? Man is upright. Huh? And how much righteousness did man retain? 0. Uprightness before God.
You know, it's and I don't mean to interrupt, but that's a really interesting thought, because that's exactly what Arminianism does. It gives room for man to have retained.
Exactly. That's why you're making the point that I'm making. This. I'm saying all of this to say what you're saying right now. And once you do that, and they insist on it, that man at a certain level retains the image of God, then what do you have? You get right back to it's so related to their redefinition of total depravity. That man is not as bad as he can possibly be, which would have to mean what? If he's not as bad as he can possibly be, that would have to mean there is at least some goodness in him. If there's some goodness in him, there's life. If there's life in him, there's faith. Huh? What's the first act of regenerate man? Faith. If there's goodness, there's life. If there's life, there's faith. If there's faith, there's a Christian.
And they'll be working. But not.
Right, there you go. So now you're right back into 100% Pelagianism. Mm-hmm. Yeah, man is basically a good person. Man is a Christian before he's a Christian.
So my father had an illustration. He was a Pentecostal preacher, and he made a reference to a man who sold a house, and he gave it for a really reasonable price. But he had one condition. He said, I just want to put this nail here, and whenever I want to hang my hat, I want to be able to, come and hang it. Yeah. And it was in the contract that any time he wanted to hang his hat, he could come and hang his hat. So then he gave the house for half of the price of its value. The guy that bought it was thrilled. Until guy come in at 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you doing here? I said, I can't hang my hat. So he retained, you see, and that's what they deny, that, no, he sold the house without the nail. He lost everything. Man lost everything. There's no nail there. And that's what they want to do. They want to have something to, like a backdrop, at least of what God had. And we don't even have that.
Yeah, exactly. But you see, the reason, and this is why it's so evil. This isn't something we cannot give any ground on this.
No.
None whatsoever. We insist that man totally lost the image of God at the fall. In fact, as we've recently pointed out, Ursinus, in his commentary on the Heidelberg, says that man not only completely lost the image of God, but he was transformed into the image of Satan. Charnock says the same thing, and Joseph Carroll says the same thing. That man not only completely and utterly lost the image of God, he became transformed into the image of Satan. And the reason they insist that man retains, in some sense, the image of God is that if man, this is how evil it is. If man retains somewhat of the image of God, he doesn't need Christ. And the false gospel, here's what it's at. Bottom line is what? The removal of Christ from Christianity. That's what it's at. That's what it's about. And the more discernment you have, the more you understand the Bible, the more you're able to see that. You see it coming. You see where this is going. See, when you first become a Christian, you gradually come to see errors. So that's not right. That's not correct. But the longer you're a Christian, the more you see where these things are leading to. Just like a guy's building you're building a house and you get the foundation off just a little bit, right? Just a little bit. But then when the edifice goes up, then what? The higher it is, the higher it is, the more evident. It was already bad to begin with, but the more evident. And the guy with the good eye, he sees at the beginning, no, you can't build a house on that. But I'm not going to even put my hammer to the nail, right? Because the foundation is not right.
That also gives motivation for the age of accountability.
Yeah. In what sense?
If there's no original, if man retains something, then when the child is born, there's something in him that he can
be accountable. Yeah.
And he's as soon as he's the age of accountability, and
then he can manifest the goodness that was in him to begin with.
And it just boils down everything to education.
Right. Yeah.
How you're brought up, your upbringing.
So, how did all that relate to what we're talking about? We're talking about the sixth commandment. And the reason why we are not killed is man. We're not to murder, is man is made in the image of God. Now, we can't stop there because we got to go further. Because our opponents will say, if we insist, as we will, that man has totally lost the image of God and is transformed in the image of Satan. Well, how is it that if man has totally lost the image of God, why can we not murder? Since the whole reason for the prohibition against murder is that man is created in the image of God. But if that's totally gone, then I guess we can go murder people now. And the answer is no, but we have to know why. And the best explanation I've heard is that man...
That is really a powerful injunction.
What's that?
What you're stating right now, because that's a fact.
And you've got to be able to give an answer to every man asking the reason of the hope. This is because, you just said man has totally lost the image of God, then why is murder prohibited?
Yes. Why am I being, hey, I'm doing a favor by getting rid of
these bad guys.
Yeah.
We're cleaning up society.
Yeah.
Sweep the streets and sweep those guys in the gutter too. They're worse than the dirt on the streets. But the situation is that man retains the formal image of God while completely and utterly losing the material. The material image is what we were just talking about: knowledge, righteousness. Well, we didn't finish that. Man is completely not upright. Man was created knowledge with the knowledge of God. He was upright. He stood before God. He could look God in the face. He was upright. And then, thirdly, he was created. Holiness means what? Armin, what do we say holiness means? Holy?
Set apart for the service.
All right. He was set apart for the service of God. His whole life was lived with one principle in mind, and that is the service of God. See? And that's what gives our lives meaning. And but at the fall, what happened? What did we just say? He turns around and he's facing the devil. Now he serves the devil. And we can't always see that so readily, right? Because what? Because of Jeremiah 17:9. Remember what that says? No. Jeremiah 17:9 says what?
The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked.
Yeah. To an untrained eye, it's not easy at times. Well, even to people who have trained eyes, like Christians, at times, man is so deceitful. It's not easy to see, and that's why these people get away with saying that total depravity doesn't mean the sinner is as bad as he can be. Why does he get away with saying that, even though it's 100% incorrect? Hold on. Why do you think they get away with that? I mean, their name is Legion. They're all, 99% of Reformed leaders, the first thing they say when they're talking about total depravity is what? It doesn't mean the sinner is as bad as he can be.
No.
That's the only thing it does mean. So how do they get away with that? All day. What do you think?
They get away with that because their audience members are
Probably
primarily unregenerate, and so
They're superficial in their thinking. They think superficially. They think, oh, how can man be? They'll say things like, well, if my car falls in the ditch, won't he help me out? Won't my neighbor, who's an unregenerate man, won't he help me out? If your child gets sick, won't the hospital take him in and after you sign the papers, saying your life away that you won't the hospital take him in and treat him? See, and Hoeksema had a good answer to that. He said, is he regenerate? And then he said, if he's not, it doesn't matter what he does. If he's unregenerate, right? If he's unregenerate, everything he does for what? For a reason other than the glory of God. And what is that? 100% for self. So, knowledge, righteousness, and holiness. Now, back to what we were talking about. In what sense does man retain the image of God, though he's completely lost the material? And what do we say the material image is what? We just said it.
I know.
Knowledge.
Knowledge, righteousness,
And holiness. That's the material. He's completely lost it. He's got no knowledge of God.
No.
He's not upright.
No.
I'm in, right out, right up, right down, right happy all the time. Saying that chorus. He's not upright, and he's not only separated, not separated in the service of God. He's separated in the service of Satan. But he retains the formal meaning. Man at the fall did not cease to be man. And what do we mean by that? Man still has a will. Does an animal have... The difference between an animal and man is a difference in kind. You ever seen a dog saying, I'm tired of this hot water and this hot weather in Florida. I'm going up to North Dakota and where it's cool. Because he acts according to his what?
Nature.
What's the other word? Instinct.
Instinct, right.
He acts according to his instinct. He doesn't have a will.
No.
He has things about him that sometimes resemble but he doesn't have it. He doesn't love, right? He doesn't love. He doesn't love. He doesn't what else? He doesn't think.
He doesn't process thoughts, no.
No. And so man did not lose those things which distinguish him from the animal kingdom. What did he lose? He lost the ability to use those things for the glory of God. So there we go. He retains the formal image, while completely losing the material image. And then, what was it? 68 was the last question, right? What is required in the Sixth Commandment? All lawful endeavors to preserve our own life and the life of others. Now, I remember back when we were in Virginia, we got stuck on this question because somebody brought up the idea of, or maybe I brought it up, but we were talking about, Thomas Vincent in his exposition of the Shorter Catechism was dealing with this question, and he said, is it okay for us to, in order to, okay, so we're positively we're enjoined to, it requires all lawful endeavors to preserve our own life and the life of. Now, this is a good question. Did it say all endeavors to preserve it? What did it say? There was an adjective before endeavor. What is it? Well, you don't have it in front of you. All lawful endeavors,
Right.
to preserve our own life and the life of others. Meaning what? What is that? How does that hit you? All lawful endeavors to preserve our own life and the life of others.
Based on a knowledge of truth and God and the law of God.
All right, and so Thomas Vincent was explaining what would be a non-law, and that's what these guys had in mind. Mm-hmm. What would be an endeavor to preserve either your life or the life of other people, which is not in accordance with God's law, and that is to violate the 9th commandment, which is what? Thou shalt not bear false witness. And so Vincent said it is not. It is not okay. It's not what the word. What's the word again? My mind is so tired. It's not when God says that something is okay. What's what I'm looking for? It's not. If you're allowed to do something, you're what?
Permitted.
Yeah, it's not permitted to lie in order to protect your own life or the life of others. And what are they going to come up with in the Bible? What example? Rahab. Immediately.
Yep. That's how.
Look, Rahab lied in order to protect the lives of the spies. Yes or no? Did she?
No.
Yes, she did.
She did?
She did. Yes, she told it. She said they're not here.
I thought she did it to protect herself because they were already gone.
No, but look at and so they would go to and look at Romans 11, Hebrews 11, and this is a huge objection because what do we find in Hebrews 11? We find Rahab.
Yeah, one of the heroes. In the Hall of Faith there. By faith, Rahab.
Which verse is it? By faith, the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not when she had received the spies with peace. Now, Rahab is commended in the Hall of Faith in Hebrews 11. But we must insist, because the text itself did not commend her for her lie. It commended her for her faith.
Yep.
All right. So she commends her for her faith to protect the spies, but it does not even hint at a commendation of the way that she did it, which is she told a falsehood. Now, this is so important because what did we just quote? What verse? Jeremiah 17:9 is what? The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. And you talk about giving him an inch, it takes a mile. You talk about Pandora's box. Once you allow, like when I was going over the Ten Commandments in China, well, they said, well, this was the ninth commandment. There's thou shalt not bear false witness. And so they said, well, what about San Yihuang? San Yihuang was, what about white lies?
They are such thing.
In China, it's much more acceptable to, like if somebody's got a terminal illness or something, and the doctor frequently will say, well, you're going to be okay, or his parents, or his, whatever. But,
So, can I ask a question in terms of this, with this related to this?
Yeah.
So, for some reason or other, you're going down a road and you kick off some driver, and he followed you, and you got here before he did, and you know that he's following you, and you hide, and he comes to the door, knocks on the door.
What is that? I didn't get the first part of the story.
You're on the highway, and you take somebody off, some driver.
Oh, you get somebody mad, all
right. You got road rage.
Okay,
and
yeah.
He follows you, and he asks somebody, hey, there's a guy with the van. He lives over there. But you're already here because you're concerned that this person may be following you. Come in here, and Li Ching opens the door, and he says, can I help you? He says, yeah, I'm looking for the guy that owns the white. Is he here? Because I'm going to kill him. And Li Ching says, no, he's not here. Because he's protecting your life. And I'm asking you that because that's one of the things that comes up in...
Well, yeah, and what does the scripture say in another instance that, and it's speaking not directly in the same instance, but it says that the Holy Spirit will give you words. I think the context of that was persecution. The Holy Spirit will give you the words to say. And you can answer people without lying. And we are given wisdom at the time that we need it.
I have an illustration.
This is so important that once you let dishonesty in,
it permeates
everything. Then everything's permissible. Well, I said this because of such and such and such and such. So that's why Thomas, and he's not alone. This is historic Orthodox teaching. That I really believe where it says the sixth commandment requires all lawful endeavors to preserve our own life and the life of others. That's not all that it's indicating, but it's certainly included. I'll guarantee you they had that in mind. All lawful endeavors. Oh, and I forgot his name. Vincent said, Thomas Vincent, in his explanation of that, he said that. That truth is. I wish I could. Maybe we'll look it up in a second. But he said truth is so important that any advantage that would be gained from an untruth told would be far outweighed by the importance of truth. And
well, ultimately, it comes back to it always comes back to the point where it proves itself.
Yeah, and like we were talking about the other day, no man is an island, right? And you sin, and this is a society that we live in, and we cannot
sin on.
Yeah, you cannot sin without other people being affected. So that's one of the main things that is in play here. And when they say all lawful endeavors to preserve our own life and the life of others. But next week, when we're going to get to question 69, what is forbidden in the sixth commandment? The sixth commandment forbiddeth the taking away of our own life. Why doesn't it say the lawful or the unlawful, right? Taking away, because there is no sense in which what?
Could be otherwise.
In the 69th, what is forbidden in the sixth commandment? The sixth commandment forbiddeth the taking away of our own life. It doesn't say the unlawful taking away of our own life. Why doesn't it say that?
It's always
You're right, because there is no sense in which it would be lawful for you to take your own life. See, there's the logic of these guys. Precise logic. Tight logic. But here, all lawful endeavors to preserve our own life and the life of others. And so that, and there you go again. So you have the negative prohibition and the positive injunction, and so that we're supposed to be people that go about helping other people, doing things which encourage, help other people, further them along in life, and that's one of the main principles of caring for other people in the way that we would be cared for ourselves. And then you get to the question of, obvious question here, of abortion, right? And so, where a certain pastor said that he would stand shoulder to shoulder. He said, now, when you're talking about the gospel, no, we don't cooperate with unbelievers. No. We're talking about the gospel. We cannot possibly. I mean, how could we cooperate with an unbeliever? But when it comes to things like abortion, he said, I will stand shoulder to shoulder with demon worshipers on the issue of abortion. All right, what's wrong with that statement? Okay, first of all, let's ask this one. Why did he think that would be okay?
Because he
In
thought
his perverted thinking. What?
Because he thought he'd be defending life and honoring that commandment.
Yeah, but what? All right, yeah, true. But that's not what I'm getting. You know where I'm getting at? Why?
He thinks that the demon worshippers are, to the extent that they're fighting for the unborn lives, doing some good.
With the knowledge
right.
of truth.
And so, yeah.
They don't.
And that's a good point. I wasn't thinking of directly, but that's another good
The
point.
civil righteousness.
Yeah, right. But what I was thinking of is that that statement indicates a total lack of understanding that the sixth commandment is a spiritual, 100% spiritual injunction. And let me prove it. What did we say? What is the only reason why we cannot murder another person? Because of the image of God. Now, okay, here's the next question. How much respect does a demon worshiper have for the image of God? 0. So what's my conclusion? Are we following step by step the logic? Where am I going? What?
Well, assuming that this Reformed pastor is a Christian, which I...
Well, no, we don't assume that.
We don't assume that, right. Well, his justification would be that they're both marching
On the same side.
for a righteous cause, supposedly for the same motives, the same reasons,
right.
they couldn't be.
But my main point here is this. He got this pastor who said that he would stand with demon worshipers on shoulder to shoulder on the issue of abortion. In other words, we need to picket abortion clinics. We need to stand up for the rights of the unborn. We need to choose life on our license plates with the two girls with the curly hair. And but what he doesn't realize is that the demon worshiper is not opposed to murder. Because there's only one reason, right? If there's only one reason for the opposition of murder, and what is it? The image of God. And he doesn't give a flip about the image of God. Guess what he's not opposed to? Murder. He's not opposed to murder. How dare you say such? How dare I say such a thing? I got a Bible right here. Here's a stand right here. How many reasons are there for the opposition to murder? 1, the image of God. Now, if a guy doesn't care anything about the image of God, how much is he opposed to murder? No. And you'll see it. You'll see it in their lives. So, you can't stand shoulder to shoulder with a guy on the issue of abortion who's not opposed to murder, right? I mean, isn't that what you're trying to do, to preserve life rather than murdering the unborn? You want to preserve their lives? So,
Excuse me, the neighbors.
Yes.
okay, well, so all right, let's pray. We're finished. Heavenly Father, we thank Thee again for this another time together. We thank Thee for Thy word. We thank Thee for our safe trip back from Idaho. And we pray that we would have time together with our neighbors, and all they were able to give a speech. And pray for the food also, and pray, use it for thy glory. In the name of the Lord Jesus we pray. Amen.
By the way, I'm not back yet. I won't be till tomorrow morning.
You what?
I'm not back yet. It won't be till tomorrow morning.
Speech.
You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
That's why you couldn't remember the word permit. You're not back yet.
That was such a sophisticated word, too.
Yeah, I know. That's what I tell him. He couldn't remember the word permit because he's not back yet.
I've never met you before.
What's speech?
And you never met her before? You never met Lindsay before?
We've just never bumped into each other. How you doing? All right.